because they will produce visions in you. And they will produce actions relative to these visions. And the Qur'an says here, وَإِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ كَرِيمٌ. This Qur'an, no doubt, is described as Qur'anun Kareem. And if I may put that in English, I can use two words: noble and generous. When somebody is noble, they're not just ordinary. When they're generous, think of generosity and being a miser. So Allah is telling us that this is no ordinary book. That this is a Kareem. This book is called Kareem. And there's something inherent in this book. If you open a book of economics and it is written by somebody who knows economics, what do you think is going to happen to you when you read it? The generosity of the author is going to fall over onto you. You read a book on politics, and if it is written not by somebody who is a farce, but somebody who knows politics, when you read it, political sense and history will come to you. You read a book of physics, or botany, or any ology, that's going to happen. What do you think is going to happen if you and I study the Qur'an? You think we're going to remain poor? You think we are going to remain poor? If you and I study the Qur'an, I don't talk about reading it, because this is a next manufactured imposition that Muslims have developed. They develop a culture to read this Qur'an without understanding it. But they don't read any other book like that. They make sure they read their books that relate to their offices and their business and their houses and everything in the language they understand. But when they read this Qur'an, which is supposed to be God's book, well, they're reading it, at least let God understand what they're saying. You know, this is the kind of intelligence that we have been putting out to the world. So the Qur'an is the book. If you study it and I study it, to use a simple cliche, we will not complete the study of it, however small, except that we'll be enriched. So this is what the Qur'an is telling us, at least from my understanding there. So it says, إِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ كَرِيمٌ. It's a generous book. If you read it like a parrot, you will get the results of a parrot. But if you read it to understand the sense, the intelligence, the practicality, the relativity, and how it is enhancing, then that's what's going to happen to you and happen to me. So the next verse that follows, fi kitabin maknoon. Our translators translate this word maknoon to mean vaulted. If you look at the translations, whether they're Yusuf Ali or Pickthall or these great scholars, you will find it is in a book fully vaulted, fully protected. But what is the word maknoon? The word maknoon is Arabic and comes from the word makuna. Makuna means to be of strength, to be of power, to be of capability, to be of possibility, to be of influence. You hear that? So Kitabin Maknoon means it is a book of tremendous power and capability and influence and possibility and enhancement. There's a big difference there. When you tell people Fi Kitabin Maknoon, it's a vaulted book, you're just putting rings around their brains, they don't even know what they're reading. لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. And their translation is, nobody touches it except the purified. So the Muslim scholars in their tafsir, they have different vision of purified. Some people feel they are purified when they make wudu. Some people feel they are purified when they make ghusl. So this is one perception of purification. Some people feel they are purified when they just verbally acknowledge words of Islam. So you see, we're not short of any of those things. This Qur'an does not tell us in its language that it is a magical book, it's a mystical book, that if you touch it, you'll be purified. It didn't say that. La yamassu, massa yamassu doesn't mean to touch. It means to grasp. There's a world of a difference between you touching a book physically or figuratively grasping it, holding on to it, gripping it, comprehending it, understanding it, perceiving what it is all about. And look at the difference of understanding. The majority of Muslims in any country you go, they have adopted the cheap religious, non-Qur'anic meaning, and that is, this is a book of magic. Touch it. So what they do, they can't touch it all the time, but they make sure it touches them. So they go to their people who are professionals in society, and they make ta'weed for them, and they put it in lockets around their chest, around their arm, around their stomach, put it in their vehicles, put it over their doors, right? Even they have some of it written in different linguistic format, where they reduce the words of the Qur'an to numerical values, and then they wash these ink-written paper into water and they give it to their fellow human beings. This is a reality in Muslim society. And that's why the average Muslim, you travel to Muslim countries, you name it, and you go to it. The average Muslim in the average Muslim society up here is empty where the Qur'an is concerned. They have no interest to study Qur'an because why? They have all the professionals who are telling them, you don't really have to study. You just have to touch it. And if you can't touch it and you can't read it, you can pay some money and you can get people who can come and read it for you. And there is no shortage of ceremonies for the living and especially the dead. If you can pay, you can get the Qur'an being read for you. That pagan idea, that's a pagan idea, to touch the Qur'an or to touch a book of God and you'll be blessed, doesn't have any support in this Qur'an. We can touch Allah's revelation by touching the paper. We can only touch Allah's revelation figuratively speaking when we are prepared to empty our own lives, our mind, our thoughts, our values, our practices, our perceptions, when we are prepared to empty those of whatever has been and to infuse in them divine guidance and divine loftiness. Purification is all about that. It's not about being a fanatic about water. If we are sensible, we'll be very moderate in the use of water. This Qur'an doesn't tell people how many times to use water. But the Muslims are in a frenzy. To them, they can't wash one time. They can't wash one time. They got to wash 3 times. Because they're super religious. Right? It's easy to do that when you're not paying for the water. Because in most Muslim society, it's a free-for-all. In most Muslim society, it's a free-for-all. You go to the masjid, the average person is not aware of the bills, open the tap, has his friend next to him, they are chatting. All of this is going down the drain. And we are very holy because we're going to do something very holy. We're going to pray. But the basics of human life, which is what the Qur'an came to teach, we lose sight of. Because why? We are crazy over rituals. We believe in a magical religion. We believe in a mystical religion because this is the scholarship we respect. We don't respect intellectual scholarship.